Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 114, coming to you fresh on New Year's Day. Happy New Year's to all of you. And may I note, any day you want can be New Year's Day. Absolutely any fucking day can be New Year's Day. However, since collectively the energy is, abundant that today is largely celebrated, why not ride the wave? Well, we're going to ride the wave. Curious if anyone has chosen a word of the year. I have, and I outlined my process in an earlier episode. I'll put that link in the show notes, so I won't repeat it here. But the word that I've settled on and feel really, really good about is evolve. I talk a lot about how, the unspoken awesomeness of getting older. And I feel I have fully grown into this version of myself at 42 that I've been becoming for several years. I know myself so much better, and I feel like it's time to shed the skin. I've grown into it, and I think it's time to grow out of it now. I expect some discomfort as that happens. Wonder how a snake feels when it's shedding its skin. But I do know if a snake does not shed, it will die. So evolve is my word for 2025. Also a note to say, if you are a patron on the Coven tier or higher, then you get a hand calligraphied. Is that a word? Have I invented this word? I do flex pen calligraphy. I've been learning for about a year. So if you're of the Coven tier or higher, you get your word of the year or hand penned from me to you, made with much love. So make sure you get a note to me about what your word is. Of course, if you're in any of those tiers, I'll be sending you a message in the new year. The no work portion of December has been fantastic. I just barely remembered to even record this podcast, which to me does not feel like, it is work, but it's sacred work. And the no work portion of December, and then the low work portion of the beginning of the month, that all ties into my word of the year, because my priorities, I was going to say are shifting, but they've already shifted, and they've been heading in this direction for quite some time. My highest priority is quality of life. I'll say it again. My number one priority is quality of life. And that's also going to be how I coach. It's why I work my ass off to be able to give myself no work portions of December and also in June. With leaning into that seasonality highly improves my quality of life. And I've been pretty brutal about defending it. I've gotten emails. I don't know. I'm not checking them. But I know I've gotten messages from people that I love, that need answers from me on things. Luckily, my vacation responder was very accommodating, and I'm sure sent them the message that I won't be reading their words, but look forward to reading them tomorrow, actually, January 2nd, because that's when I go back to work. And to be clear, quality of life isn't just my number one priority for me, it's also my number one priority for you. And that means creating a sustainable creative practice that is built around your life and making your life better and making your life conducive to your creative practice and vice versa. Because I will tell you some things that I'm very tired of. I am very tired of seeing artists burnt out to the point where they're just a walking vat of cortisol and have been for like 5 years. And, you get that like hollow look in their eyes. They're like, I I am doing it. I'm making it happen. I'm like, yes, but love, there's nothing left of you. So sustainability of creative practice is a major priority for me and for you. So you can expect that to continue and to be even more pronounced as we move forward in the podcast. But here's some things that I know to be true. If nothing changes, nothing changes, first and foremost. Also, you can't do anything great without work. Work is an assumed part of what we are doing here. So I'm never going to coach you to just like sit back, relax, and wait for your dreams to like knock on your door, because I actually want you to make your work. We can preclude that effort will befall anyone who wants to do something great. And what great means is very subjective. But if you're here and you're listening to me, I'm assuming that you want to make things, and you already are making things. And the way that we approach making things decides a lot for us. And in the past, I have used as a compass like financial wellness for artists as a barometer of how well things are going. Not necessarily how much money you are making, but letting like a healthy wage dictate whether an opportunity is going to be worth your time and your labor and your love. Now, money is a very important part of any artistic formula. It's not something I'm ever going to ignore, because that won't make a sustainable creative practice for you. It needs to be part of the conversation, and it is. But I do want to evolve in the way that we approach what opportunities we want to pursue. And the way that I want to do that is to very intentionally make a shift from asking artists to ask themselves, is this opportunity paying me a healthy wage and therefore valuing me as a person? And into a shift of, is this opportunity going to give me safe working conditions and a good quality of life while I engage with it? And the reasons that I want to make this shift are manyfold. I'll tell you a few of them. One is, regardless of how important it is to make a living wage, and that money is an important aspect of an approach, when it becomes the deciding factor, we lose in some ways. One is that it creates a subconscious methodology that leads to a belief that as long as enough money is there, then it's a good idea, and that we are willing to suffer for X amount as long as we're being paid. And let me ask you a question, like, how many gigs have you done? How many opportunities have you pursued where at the end you sit down with yourself and you're like, well, I'm never doing that again, even though they paid you what you asked for? Usually it's because you were treated like you didn't matter, and that you were treated like a commodity instead of an artist or a human. And it is my belief that if we shift the way that we think about opportunities and whether or not they're a good idea, from does it pay enough into does it care for me, does it treat me with humanity, when I sit in a room with these people, do I feel respected? I believe that if we shift our mindset into that framework, that it sets us up for success so much better than just asking the question, do the numbers work? This is coming off the tail end of one of my beloved alumni. I don't have her permission to name her, so I won't, but she's been in an accident working a contract where she was continually ignored. Her human needs consistently looked over. And as a result of the negligence of those in authority, she's now injured for months. And who among us is not guilty of, not that this is her fault, it was not her fault. She spoke up often and loudly and was ignored. But hearing this story, I'm remembering times where I was being worked much too hard, much too late in the evening for it to be safe, when my body and my mind were exhausted and I was participating in a mortally dangerous activity. And at one point, I remember looking over to the performer next to me, where we were working at great height. Okay, I'm talking, I would say 50 feet high, and noticed that one performer's safety belt wasn't buckled all the way. So I buckled it for them. I should not have been the one to catch that. There was someone in charge of that, but it was late and we had been there for many, many hours and it wasn't caught. And we all knew that it was too late. We all knew that we were being asked to do something that was unsafe, and we all did it anyway. And there was this collective agreement because, of course, we wanted the work to work. It makes my blood run cold thinking of what could have happened if I hadn't looked down and seen that belt on my colleague's body undone. So to put this in more accessible terms, because these are just a lot of words from me to you, let's put this into some questions that you can keep in your back pocket and refer to when you're trying to decide if an opportunity is a good fit for you or not. Question 1. Am I able to ask questions and get answers regarding safe working conditions? Part of this is our job, and our job is to know what it is that we need in the first place, to know what's the working limit that we need in our equipment. What do we need to be able to warm ourselves up? Who among us has not warmed up our splits in a freezing liquor closet? No, just me? No, I know it's not just me. But a lot of people and a lot of clients, if you're a performing artist, don't know what you need and will assume, usually quite rightly, that you'll do anything to get on stage. And if we want the people that hire us to value our humanity, we have to value it first. So our first job is knowing what we need so that we can ask for it. And so often students come to me and they feel really uncomfortable because they're asking questions that they really need the answers to, but the people on the other end aren't answering them. And they aren't answering them in part because those people don't value what's on the other side of that question, which is the humanity of the artist and the safety of the artist. It's not a priority. If your life is not a priority for the people who are in charge of your life, then it's not a good fit, no matter how much they're paying you, which I suspect is not enough in the first place. So that is my proposed first question to ask yourselves. Am I able to ask questions and get answers on safe working conditions? To be preceded by, do I know what I need? Do I know what my safe working conditions are? Question number 2, when I engage with these individuals or this organization, do I feel respected? Now, this is really subjective. And of course, there's lots of other factors that could come into play, like our own sense of self-actualization is a factor here. But it is my opinion that if you feel like you're being disrespected, then you are. If you're engaging with someone, you're like, I don't think this person respects me very much. You're probably right about that. And I know that this is like a little wooey and extremely subjective, but this is a somatic knowing. Like, it's something that you know in your body. So really getting into our bodies and out of our heads, because in our heads, that's where we're asking the question, is there enough money? Do the numbers work? Well, yes, but if we want to make an intentional shift into the perspective of, are these safe working conditions that support my humanity, then we need to be in the body and not just in the skull. So, do I feel respected when I engage with these people? And you're like, Rachel, what the fuck does any of that mean? Well, let's do a little exercise here, okay? Take a second, close your eyes, take a deep breath. And I want you to think back to a time where you felt very respected, where you felt grateful to be a part of something, where you felt loved. And keep this to a professional memory, okay? When you felt really valued by someone that you were working with. And just remember that experience for a moment. Where you were, what was the room like, how was your body sitting, and how did it feel in your body? And when you remember this time, where in your body do you feel it, and what is that sensation? When I do this exercise for myself, the first thing I think of is back in, was it October? I don't know. What even is time? We're in the land outside of time. This year, I was invited to speak at BossUp, put on by my dear friend, Shante Cofiled, the movement Maestro, and JillFit. And I felt so well cared for from top to bottom the entire time. Like when I was like, what do you want me to speak about? You know, she gave me some ideas, but also said, just be yourself. Like literally whatever you want to say, I'm here for it. And it was amazing. And I felt so cared for and so respected. And that was a very grounding feeling for me. Like somatically, I can feel that as a warmth and an openness in my chest, and also like gravity in my shoulder blades, if that makes sense. And just felt really rooted. That's how I experience it. So try that exercise, see where it feels and how it feels in your own body. That's your somatic response to feeling respected and cared for. If you recognize it, then you'll know it next time it shows up. If you're on a longer term contract, and even if you're not, it is my new opinion that the contract should include something on what happens if you get sick or injured, so that you are not forced to perform under those circumstances. This is coming to you fresh off the heels of an update that I've just gotten from the alumni artist that I mentioned earlier in this podcast, because that's something that she is going to do. So that's coming straight from her. And I also wanted to report that as a result of her injuries and in answer to them, she received a message from her employer that he didn't care and it wasn't his problem. So she went to the press and the police, because that's fucking self-respect. I could not be prouder. I am also absolutely furious. This is some bullshit, y'all. This is some bullshit. And this has got to change. Like how artists are just like strung up like meat on a wire, because like there's this culture of we'll do anything to get the gig. And like I said, like it is not this artist's fault. It's not anyone's fault when they're treated badly. But I think it's time that we admit out loud that we accept deplorable working conditions. And it's not an individual responsibility. It's a collective responsibility. And this is how it gets changed, one heart at a time. I could not be more proud of her for taking those actions to defend herself. It is unconscionable for an employer to treat their artists this way, as though they were not even a human being. Also want to add that the pay on the contract that I'm referencing was appropriate. And on that note, I just want to point out that this isn't something that only affects specialty performers. For example, I have a friend who works on tour with really big pop star that will go unnamed. But if I told you who I was talking about, you'd be like, no, you don't. Well, I do. And the tours are so grueling. And when I hear about the conditions, and of course they've got nice hotel rooms and stuff like that, but the pace is just inhuman, and just so many shows just packed and packed and packed. I'm like, is that necessary? And I'm reminded of a quote from Dangerous Beauty, which is a movie that I very, very much love. It's about whores in Venice during the Black Plague. Sorry, courtesans, but I really like the word whores. And this young woman gets married off to some old codger, like 4 times her age, literally. And her friend is just like horrified and turns to the brother and is like, surely your father could have traded down a few ducats for an ounce of virility. And that's kind of I'm always reminded of that quote when I think about the conditions on these very well paid tours that are very well publicized. Like, could we like trade down a couple bucks so that the primary artists and the staff get to retain a modicum of their sanity? No, I'm not in charge. And if I was, everyone would probably be making a lot less money because I'd be putting quality of life first. Just one woman's opinion. Well, I have been on my soapbox now for over 20 minutes. Didn't even give a life update. Maybe I'll tag it on here at the end. When this episode drops, it'll be New Year's Day. That's why we're going into it, or I'm going into it with this intentional shift in perspective towards quality of life priority number 1. And I'll be doing the traditional New Year's Day thing here in the South. Just a little note adding that Southern culture is Black culture, and it's important to acknowledge that. And that traditional thing is eating a meal that consists of pork, greens, cornbread, and black-eyed peas. And most of those things mean more wealth and abundance. And I'm including quality of life as the primary sign of wealth here. Also, a little note to add as far as the podcast goes, because normally the first Wednesday of every month I release a guest episode. At least that's what I did in 2024. I'm still going to do guest episodes in 2025, but I'm not going to hold to any kind of arbitrary calendar for them. I'm going to interview who I want when we're able to, and it could be 6 guests, it could be 13 guests. I don't know. Time will tell. So they'll just be a surprise when they happen, which they will. And last reminder that in a couple of days, on January 4th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on my Patreon, applications will be open for Creatrix 2025, taking place in May. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. If there are any slots remaining on the 8th of January, that will go to the public waitlist, and there will be a link to that as well. Choose your own adventure. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. It means a great deal to me that you do, and I love hearing from you, so thank you. If you have requests for episodes, I would love to hear them. You can reach me on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. I'm going to be digging pretty hard into the great requests that I've gotten, especially in the beginning of 2025, and answering some of these questions because they were really good questions and I just needed to sit with them for a while. Ask better questions, get better answers, and y'all ask really good questions. This podcast is powered by Patreon. So to my patrons, my heartfelt thanks for standing with me and beside me. This and so much more that I do exists because of you. Go out there and have a kick-ass quality of life. Don't go back to sleep.